So talking with Matt, one of the things we were talking about, and we wanted to be sure that we covered people that have never sharpened before and are here to learn everything about sharpening. And it's easy sometimes for those of us who've been doing it for several years to forget some of the things that were difficult or maybe didn't click with us right away. So on this particular video, I'm going to talk about the Sharpie trick, because it was one of those things that the first time I heard it and read about it, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about here, and I just couldn't see it in my mind. And I remember watching a couple other videos and things, and it still wasn't clear to me because the person was going too fast or doing it too quickly. So I'm going to do the Sharpie trick. I have a couple different cameras set up here, and I want to really show exactly what I'm talking about. So if you understand the Sharpie trick and you've been doing it for years, this video is not for you. But if you're completely new to sharpening and you hear people say, oh, just use the Sharpie trick, and you're not sure what the heck they're talking about, this is the Sharpie trick. So, and as far as Tormeks, it doesn't really matter. I'm showing on the Tormek, but you can use this method for any type of sharpening, and you can use it for honing too. So keep that in mind. So your Tormek will come with, it actually comes with a little black marker in the kit. And mine didn't last real long. It's one of the few things I got from Tormek that wasn't fantastic. But all it is, it's a Sharpie marker, guys. So any Sharpie marker will do, but I will tell you, here's one I've been using literally for years. And I bought a 3-pack, and I'm not even on to my other one. I just started using one of the other Sharpies because I'm really starting to wear this one down a lot. So much so, as you can see, the lettering on the Sharpie is coming off. But to do it, I like to use king size Sharpies. So you can get these easily on Amazon or in any type of stores. They usually have king size Sharpies, and they're just nice because they're big and fat, and they have a big fat writing area. Now you can get the little smaller Sharpies like these, but I'm going to tell you right up front, these are a pain in the butt to do the Sharpie trick with. You don't want this little teeny tiny Sharpie. You want a big fat Sharpie like this. This little angle right here, that little shine area from here going down to the very edge, that is my bevel on this. Now, knives can have more than one bevel, but we're not even going to worry about that. We're going to get into just basic Sharpie trick on just about any knife. So here's my bevel. The very, very, very edge we refer to as the apex often. Okay, so if I'm talking bevel, I'm talking this little angle, that little bit of sloped metal going from right here for the top of the body of the knife where it's been ground all the way down to that very, very edge, which is our apex. All right, so the Sharpie trick is you're gonna take your knife just like this, and you're gonna take your Sharpie, and you are going to draw right on that bevel all the way down to the apex. Color it all in, and don't worry about how am I going to get the Sharpie off. You don't have to worry about that at all. Okay, color one side completely in. You can do both sides if you want either. I don't normally do both sides anymore, but you can. So I'll do both sides just for demonstration purposes. So I've got my line drawn all the way in on my bevel, all the way down to the apex. So now what I'm going to do the Sharpie trick on the Tormek, bring my camera up here, make a little adjustment, get you in nice and close. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is get this set up where you think it's going to be pretty close. Okay, and this is ballpark. I'm probably going to come up a little bit, so I'm going to loosen my screws over here in the back that hold this down, and we're using the micro adjust, and this is the micro adjust. All right, and I can go up or down with my micro adjust. So what I want to do is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to lay it on here, and I'm going to slowly, now you don't have to lock it in, you can if you want, but I'm going to slowly just lightly draw my stone towards me, and then I'm going to take a look and see where that's removing Sharpie from. And if you look really close, let's zoom in, see it's kind of, there's Sharpie above the line, there's Sharpie, a lot of Sharpie below the line, and it just removed it right in the middle. So what that tells me is that we need to make some adjustments, because we want the metal removal part to be all the way down to the apex, that very edge that I told you about, and not so high. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start making adjustments to our wheel, and to bring that closer to the edge, we're going to go up. So we're going to raise it up, which is spinning this little wheel clockwise. Now I know this needs to go up quite a bit, so I'm going to give it a couple good spins there. And now I'm just going to do the same thing, and I'm going to check it again. And I don't have to redraw the line. I'm just going to see how much more, if at all, that helped. And it came down a little, but it's still not far enough. So we're going to keep making those adjustments until we see that Sharpie line disappearing from where we want it to go. And I'm going to move up a little bit further on the knife here, and then take a look. So we're getting a lot closer. Let me show you. Okay, so we're right up here, and you see it's very, very close, but we are still not there. I can still see black Sharpie on the apex. So I'm gonna again give this a little bit of rise there. Now, over time, you will learn, if you sharpen lots and lots of knives, you'll almost know exactly how many turns something's gonna take. Now let me show you how close we are now. So here we are. That's our most recent one. And you can see we have, if there's Sharpie there, I can no longer see it with my naked eye. Now, this is where, so here's my scope. I'm just gonna zoom in on the screen. Now this one's kind of, this is about $180 scope, but for a long time I used a very simple $30 scope, and I'll show you that one. So see that right there? That is my scope. And that one is hooked up to this laptop so I can look at it there. This one only runs about $30, but it does a plenty good job for most people. So that you don't have to go and spend a ton of money on a scope. You don't even need a scope, but it can be helpful. And I'll talk about that in other videos and more advanced stuff of why scope might be worthwhile. But I'll just show you real quickly on here. It's very good if you don't have great eyesight. It can be helpful there. And hopefully you guys can see that. But I'm looking for, so here's the section where the Sharpie is gone. And I don't see any Sharpie down here on the apex. And I can just move down the knife there, and you can see here's where the Sharpie is started again, and you can see what it looks like when it is on the apex there. But this is where our most recent grind away part was, and you can see, so we got a pretty good angle there. And So what I will now do is I'm just going to come back to my Tormek, and now I will start grinding this knife until I raise a burr. So what I'm going to do, and since we'll just talk about it since we're here, and maybe that should be the Sharpie trick and raising a burr and what is a burr and everything might be the best conversation that we have with this particular video. So, all right, so my Tormek's going, and for me, I know just from doing it, usually around 5 strokes. So I like to line up on my stone and be as flat as I possibly can and try and hit it nice and evenly. And I go almost the full length of the stone, and I try and remove just before the tip. I don't want it to roll off the end because it will round your tip, and you don't want to do that. So what I'll do is I will do a few strokes, and then I'm going to take a look to see, does that look good? And that looks great. Okay, let me show you. So see, it's removed all that Sharpie. We're all the way down to the tip. And we need some more work here back on the heel. So it needs some more grinding back here, and that's not uncommon. Sometimes you'll have thicker areas of knife or places where it needs a little more grinding to reach it. But so far I'm happy with what I'm seeing here. So I'm going to continue with my normal strokes. And I'm going to make sure I am hitting this rear heel part of the knife. Maybe even putting a little bit more pressure back there. And now I'm going to check for a burr. Now a burr is simply, you take your fingers and I'm going to roll up the edge on the opposite side that I ground, and I should feel a little rough section grabbing my fingers. It's actually almost like a little hook sometimes. And if I feel that roughness, then I know I have ground all the way to that apex. And this feels rough the entire way. So from tip, so sometimes you'll feel, and it might be rough here, 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 and here, and then you get back here and it's smooth. If that happens, keep grinding back here. You want that rough edge that you're feeling up on that apex all the way across. You don't want to ever go up and grit until you feel that apex across that whole knife. Now, I will tell you this too. The finer grit your stone is, the harder it is to feel that apex. So if you're using 1,000 grit stone, 1,000 grit apex is a lot harder to detect. Your fingers will get eventually sensitive to it. This is a 200 grit CBN wheel, and trust me, nobody's going to have a hard time feeling this. And let's now go to the other side, and I'm going to grind the other side of my knife and try and do very close to the same amount of strokes. So I was a little over 5, it's probably close to 7, so I'm going to shoot for 7 strokes on this. And let's see. I'm going to come over here a little. And let's get in nice and close so you can see what's going on here. Especially since I'm using a CBN wheel. Now, if you're using diamond wheels or the original Tormek stone with water, one nice thing you can do with the water is if you come down really, really close to your stone, you'll start to see the water roll over the edge. And that's a good way to line up and make sure that you're hitting your stone nice and flat. But you know, I've gotten pretty used to just doing it from doing tons of knives, and it's not, you know, I don't miss the water at all, so I am very happy grinding dry. I actually prefer it because I can see the bevel, and I can see the knife better with it out being under the water. Now, what's the downside? And I'm not wearing my nail just so you can hear me. The downside is there's some dust. There's a little metal dust. And normally I have my mask on when I'm grinding, but just for the sake of video, I'm not wearing my mask right now so that you guys can hear me, but normally I would have it on. I guess I could do a voiceover, but... So, now that I have done both sides, I can already tell it feels sharp, and it should always do that. So always do the one side, raise a burr. Once you've raised the burr, then it's okay to go to the other side, do the equal amount of strokes or close to, and then once it feels sharp, that knife is properly apexed. Now for me, what I would do next would be, for me, I would just switch machines. So I would undo my locks. I will take my guide out and go to my other machine that has a 1,000 grit wheel on there, or I think today it has a 600 grit wheel. Since we're shooting a video and I don't want to have to change the camera, I'll just finish this up by just simply, I'm going to remove this wheel, show you how easy it is to change out a wheel. I'm putting on a 1,000 grit. Yep, here's the 1,000 grit wheel. And now I can finish this knife up. And I'm gonna go for same thing, 5 strokes, feel for a burr, and then I'm gonna go to the other side. And it's not uncommon. Sometimes I need to do 10 strokes. It's usually 5 to raise a burr, but I find that usually 10 strokes finishing is really nice. So even though I'll do 5 on each side and check it, I might then do an additional 5 strokes. And that's just from experience, that I know that 10 strokes usually just does away with any old grind marks, old edges, and just really makes it look nice. And yeah, that already, it feels sharp. It hasn't even been honed yet. I'm gonna hone for you guys. Okay, so now it's time to hone our knife. So I'm gonna come over to the opposite side of my Tormek, because you always want to hone edge trailing. So you need to do that by coming to the other side of your Tormek, or if you buy the Tormek swivel, you can swivel the whole machine around. And you can spray a little water if you're using the synthetic wheel. If you're using the leather wheel, you wouldn't use any water on that. It's only the synthetic wheel you can spray with a tiny mist of water. I have little misters that I sometimes use. The one I just grabbed is out of water. I just like to use a little mister. Now, one of the best tips I ever got from Tormek sharpening was, if you have ground well and you like everything you're seeing apex wise, and it looks like you got all the metal off and everything looks good, and the knife doesn't feel sharp to the way that you like it, and that it just doesn't seem like it's sharp enough, it's probably your honing. And to focus on your honing and making sure you have the right angle. If you really look when you're honing, you can even see the burr coming off on the leather wheel or the synthetic wheel. I can see it half the time. A lot of it has to depend on the angle of your lights. But if you're grinding correctly and it's not hard to do, and you do your honing process, because after you hone, your knife should go once you get all that burr off, your knife should be really sharp. And if it's not really sharp, there's a very good chance that you didn't hone enough, or you didn't hone at the proper angle. And what I always like to do is a cut test. Now, my favorite thing for a cut test is U-line pages. Since we can't get phone books very easily anymore, U-line catalogs that come out are about the closest thing, and almost every sharpener I know uses U-line. And the knife should be cutting really well after you hone. And if it's not, and if you're not getting your push cut, and if it's not cutting through the way you want to see it cut, I would maybe go back and hone a little more and see if that corrects it. Or the other thing that it can be is sometimes it could be just a knife that has a really steep angle, which I have run into sometimes. Sometimes a knife, you know, if it's got like a really high angle, if it's got like a 25-degree angle, it's only gonna reach a particular level of sharpness. But that's the Sharpie trick. Don't be afraid to use it. And like I said, so the only place that even after all the grinding and all the honing that I have any Sharpie left is a tiny little bit back here. I'm going to grab isopropyl alcohol. The closer to 100%, the easier it comes off. You can get 100% on Amazon. I rarely see 100% isopropyl alcohol in drugstores. It's usually like 70. Go for the 90 or above, and just, like I said, Amazon, you can see it just melts it, and see how it's all gone. And that's why you don't have to worry about it. I've done thousands of knives, all different kinds, all different steels. Have never had Sharpie that wouldn't come off of a knife with the alcohol. So don't be afraid of it. Use it as a tool. Let it help you get your angles correctly. Let it help you hone correctly. And don't even be afraid to go back and put more Sharpie on. If you think that your honing angles might be off, okay, I'll just show you. It's totally fine to go back, draw on there, and go back to your hone. So the other way to learn proper honing angles that I will mention here, I'm not going to show the whole thing since we're showing the Sharpie trick, and it won't work if you did the Sharpie trick, because the Sharpie trick is for matching an existing angle. So the best you can do is get in there, like I said, and remark this and do it. But when you're in the learning phase, let's say if you set up your Tormek using the Tormek angle guide, and let's say this is set for 17 degrees. If I set my sharpening wheel, whether it be CBN or whatever you used, using the Tormek angle guide, you can also use the Tormek angle guide to set the angle for your honing, and that will give you a very good representative of what the proper angle is if you're in that learning stage. Now, it's kind of a pain to do, and you also have to remember to change the diameter to match the diameter of what the hone is, because on this CBN wheel it's 10 inches. I believe this is 8 inches. It might be 8.5. They used to have a mark on the Tormek angle guide here for it. I think it's right here. It used to be, I think it was one tick above the 200 millimeter mark, but they used to mark that for you. They don't anymore. You just need to know what that proper angle is. But make sure if you do try and use this to give you your angle using a jig, that you use that you make the adjustment to the diameter of your stone, because these are not the same diameter. And that's it. So that is the Sharpie trick. Use it, learn it. It is probably the #1 way that I know of for matching an existing edge angle on any knife using any sharpening method. As I said before, I don't care if you're not on a Tormek. You could be on a 1x30, you could be on a wicked edge, you could be on a flat stone. The Sharpie method works great for all kinds of sharpening.